Well, this is a big question. I think first word that comes to mind when I think of the audiovisual industry in the digital era is the word transformation. I think the way I see it is that there was the old world and now there's the new world. And there is a transition, of course, going from one to the other. But of course, all the old business models have changed. The way of sharing content or distributing content has changed, and the value chain has changed all across all cultural industries. And so the big impact of these transformations for me is I've talked about the 5Ds and how like the world is dematerializing, but at the same time there is rematerialization, there is disintermediation, deterritorialization. Well, we use the 5Ds to tackle the transformation, and that brings the idea that three worlds has to come together, which were not together. It's like convergence between the telecom and the audiovisual and the internet world. They have been the vector of this transformation. And now the end result is that there are clashes between three worlds that were not used to talk together. The trade world, which like the trade issues, which talked about the cultural industry trying to protect itself, like protectionism, whereas in the cultural industry you think about margin of maneuvering and recognizing the specialty, the special characteristic of the cultural industry. But for the trade world, it's not the same languages, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. And also the new culture of the internet. I mean, we don't talk the same way. They don't talk the same way as the old telecom. They try. Like the old operators, they try to, and they're migrating to the new world too, and they're doing well. For some of them, but I think it's a very new way of doing things when you talk about the internet. And the main characteristic of that new world in the internet is transnationalism, and trade and cultural industries are not used to see the world in transnational, very fluid way. So there are challenges to find the right balance between those three worlds and to find ways to talk. And if they're not articulated together, they're going to clash. So that's, for me, that's the big thing. Well, it's a very evolving landscape. I mean, there are a lot of new players, of course. We see the big ones that are what we call the CAFA, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple, and those are the big movers of this new world. But at the same time, there is a lot of emerging. I mean, we don't know who's the next Google. I mean, 10 years ago, we didn't know Google was, going to take the place of Microsoft, which was, Microsoft was the big player, and before it was IBM. So there is, we have to see, new dominant players, and also I think there is a lot coming behind. I mean, the changes are not stopped, and we don't know what it's gonna be evolving to. And there are the old ones, the players, the economic players that are still there, and they are migrating to the new world. I'm talking about the AT&T, that has now merging with Time Warner to offer the fusion of content and pipes. So to be able to compete with the Google, YouTube kind of business model, and to bring it maybe to another place. They're being good at it. I mean, I thought they would disappear, but they are reinventing themselves. And of course, there is the consumers is one of the actor that is powerless in some ways, but at the same time has a lot of say in the new equation. They're the main, I guess, deciders. I mean, everything is done so that you receive what you want, and it's personalized. This is a very new empowering of the consumer, and I don't think that the consumers understand what they have as power. I think there is a lot of how do you say that, opportunities for consumer to have a better grasp, but I think this is not unleashed power yet. There is of course the state and the organization, international organization, but they are changing. I think this is shared by a lot of scholars. They need to change too, and they need to migrate to the new world. They need to reinvent their ways of intervening, their strategies, And at that, I think they are still in disarray. I think they're still looking. They know they have to act. For most of them, or some of them, like the United States, they're still like very hands-off kind of. But you can see even in the United States, a lot of discussion about how to shape the market and make sure that it remains open. Most of it is about the internet. How to have principles guiding the regulation of the internet in an era where the internet is becoming this very essential infrastructure for the whole society and all the securities issues that are emerging. So I think the internet has become not only like a vector of change, but also an object of regulation. But we don't really know yet how to shape the regulation around it so that we're not breaking it, we're not making it like this big brother type of instrument over us, how to make it a very positive linkage that we can be networked together without losing our freedoms and identity. There are main barriers, of course. I would say that the main barriers is the knowledge. We're lacking a lot of knowledge about what is going on and what are the best practices to respond to the main challenges that are emerging with these changes. I think this is like the knowledge is for me the biggest barrier. The second one would be the lack of knowledge of the best practices, and we have no classification of what is good, what is bad, how we should. I talk about inventing a ministry of the transition that would have like a transnational outlook, and in this transition we don't know what to do, and I am very worried about finding the right means to intervene or to shape the internet. So I think the second one is the lack of knowledge and experience. We have not encountered such a problem before. And then there are opportunities. I think I like to see it always like a binary thing, because with the internet there's a lot of barriers to strengthening of the diversity of audiovisual industries, but at the same time there are opportunities. Like for instance at the UNESCO we were talking about having like a directive, a strategy, let's say, to apply the convention. So there are opportunities of network governance through the internet. I mean, think about it. Before we were not able to share ideas, and we had to take a boat for like 2 weeks to get to a conference. That was like not even like 50 years ago or 70 years ago, when we invented the United Nations, and now we can share ideas across the world. So it's our capacity to react with the internet, with the new technology, is amplified and it's accelerated, and so that's an opportunity. And also we can work together better. I talk about the networked governance, for cultural industries. So we have this opportunity to link things better than we used to, and I think this is an opportunity we have to take, and using not the old recipes, but be open to sharing new ideas. And also we can take solutions and throw them away afterwards and change. Our capacity to change, it's unsettling. It's there's a lot of uncertainty, but also we're freed from a lot of rigidities that we had in the old world, if you say. So I think that the barriers is knowledge, knowing what to do, and also I'd like to end with the fact that we don't have the right frame of thought. It's not only about knowledge, but it's about changing the paradigm of thinking about things. And for me, that's my big challenge. Is I try always to take my new glasses, and I don't know. Sometimes they're changing, because me too. I would like the old world to, I'm a bit romantic about this. Let's bring back the old world and make sure that we have a stability. And so it's a challenge to just change the paradigm and to have new glasses to see the world as it is and not like we want it to be, and so to be able to answer properly. So I would conclude with that.